Welcome everyone. Welcome to PBS Together. My name is Helder. I'm the head of educational technology at PBS Together, and we are here today for a really special session, especially for those who are starting at the field of PBS currently. And I will not spend any more time on it. I will just introduce Tracey to start this discussion. So today, who is going to run the session is Tracey Lawson, CEO of PBS Together. Welcome aboard, Tracey.
Hi, everybody. Super excited to be here. We're really excited to present this today because we have a lot of interest. So hopefully this will answer a lot of questions.
That's it. Okay, if you have any questions along the presentation, please just write in the chat. At the end of the session, we have a few minutes for a question and answer session. So just get into the chat and let us know what you want to know about the whole field of PBS. Tracey will be here to answer to you. It's up to you, Tracey.
Thanks, Helder. And so, as Helder said, we're from PBS Together, and we started PBS Together probably 2 years ago because we're really passionate about PBS, and we really want to support practitioners to do the best job and to be really confident and to love the work, because it's really important work and it's a fantastic industry to work in, and continually growing. So super exciting. But I know there's lots of confusion out there about registration and all sorts of stuff. So let's jump in and hopefully answer some of those questions for you tonight. So this is what we're going to cover today. We're going to quickly kind of go through a definition of what PBS is, then look at registration and suitability with the NDIS, what that suitability process looks like if you're new to PBS, and what it looks like if you've got some experience. Then we're going to touch on some key competencies that we think and the NDIS think that you need to do this job really well. Then we're going to look at the expectations from the NDIS. We're going to look at also what quality supervision is, super important if you're working in this space. And then looking at choosing a workplace if you haven't done that yet or you're thinking about moving. And then how PBS Together can support you in this important journey. So I know this looks like a really lot of words on a page, and we apologize for that, but I just want to read this really quickly because it's really important that we understand what PBS is. Helder Gusso is super amazing, and so we put together this definition. So positive behaviour support is an approach aimed at assisting individuals to achieve sustainable change and outcomes they value for their own lives. These changes typically involve comprehensive adjustments to the person's environment with the goal of improving and maintaining quality of life in the long term. Such changes are related to promoting social contexts that enhance access and participation in everyday community life for the person, providing opportunities for genuine choice, facilitating skill development, eliminating and reducing any restrictions in the person's life that place limits on their freedom and human rights. Indicators of successful PBS implementation include improvements in quality of life, evidence of the person developing new interests and new skills, development or enhancement of social relationships, all through the lens of what is important for the person. PBS integrates a social and rights-based model of disability within the clinical framework of applied behaviour analysis. It is an approach that can benefit anyone. In some contexts, PBS is used at a systematic level, most commonly in the areas of primary and secondary prevention in education. It's particularly beneficial for individuals with disabilities who experience disabling environments, which may lead to the person experiencing distressing behaviours. The work of PBS practitioners involve conducting detailed functional assessments, addressing an individual's behaviours that their life circumstances, and developing evidence-based individual collaborative plans with families, carers and providers that modify the environments, strengthen support networks and assist participants in developing meaningful skills aligned with their life aspirations and needs. The broader the scope for assessing the person's environment and co-developing interventions, the less precise the technical intervention needs to be. Positive adjustments to disabling environments typically create opportunities for the person to access things that are most important to them. So, registration and suitability, super confusing, lots of similar terms and words used, and so there's lots of confusion out there. So can't see that very well. Apologies for that. So basically, to work as a PBS practitioner, you need to meet two criteria. The first one is to be deemed suitable by the NDIS Quality and Safeguard Commission, but you also need to work for a PBS registered NDIS provider. It is the one area of support that you can't work within self or plan manage without a registered provider. Behaviour support is an individual space in that way, and it's put there to safeguard people because we've got a high level of responsibility around restrictive practices and all of those kinds of things, so you need to work with a registered provider. So in regards to registration and suitability, as an NDIS support practitioner, someone the NDIS Commission considers suitable. So there's suitability as to work as a practitioner, and then registration in regards to the people that you work with, or you can choose to register as a provider for yourself and be a sole trader. So in regards to suitability, you undertake behaviour support assessments, including functional behaviour assessments. You need to develop behaviour support plans that may also include the use of restrictive practices. And so this is where it's quite different in Australia to work in PBS compared to working internationally in other contexts and settings, because we kind of combine the two of those clinical skills plus also overseeing and considering risk around restrictive practice. Until the NDIS Commission considers someone suitable as a practitioner, you are unable to undertake PBS assessments or develop behaviour support plans, even if you have supervision. So this comes directly from the NDIS legislation, that we're following in regards to that. There are people out there that, we're aware of that are working with unregistered providers or working for themselves unregistered under the NDIS. But that is coming closer and closer to an end as the NDIS get a grip of who that is and trying to rein in any unregistered PBS providers for that purpose.
Tracey,
So as a practitioner,
just a second. We saw that there is a problem when we upload the presentation for the streaming software. So I'm just trying to improve it for the audience. Just a second here. Let's try if it become better now.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's it.
That's
Okay.
much better. Thanks, Helder. I've lost my ability to change the slide. Okay.
I can do it for you. Mm-hmm.
I can't change the slide. There's no arrow to change the slide. Sorry, Helder.
Sorry, I can change for you. I will be here with you. Just
okay.
let me know.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone. So, so as a practitioner, you also must be engaged by a registered provider or register yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So PROTA is something, if you haven't been accustomed to already, you need to have a look what that is. This is what the NDIS use as an applications portal. So you can use the application portal to apply to become a registered provider and also to become an NDIS behaviour support practitioner. And the expectation is from the NDIS Commission that you're able to present skills across all of these areas. There are 7 areas of competencies that the NDIS Commission expect that you're able to present evidence for. But there are a couple of different avenues around how you enter the system as a PBS practitioner. But if you went through as someone who has got some experience in PBS, then you need to develop an evidence file, and an evidence file showing all of these 7 principles and values within your portfolio. But we'll chat a bit more about that as we go forward. So if you're brand new to PBS, as someone that is super excited, so we're glad you're here, because we definitely need more passionate people as practitioners in Australia. You can use what's called the alternative pathway. So this way you don't have an evidence portfolio, so you can't show evidence that you've met all those capability areas that the NDIS expect, but you're really keen to learn. So there's lots of things that you need to put in place if you're considering entering PBS as a new practitioner. So you set up an account in Proda, P-R-O-D-A. You're best to use your own personal email, because moving forward, you may change employers. You also may access other government sites and portals on Proda. It's not just about the NDIS. So just make sure that you use your own personal email for this. And then here's all the steps, all the things that you need to be to have to upload to apply for an NDIS suitable practitioner registration through an alternative pathway. So that means you haven't worked as a practitioner before. So firstly, you need a resume. You need to kind of outline all of your experience, education, training that you've received that you think is transferable. Then you also need certified copies of any relevant qualifications. So any qualifications that you have need to be certified by a JP or something similar to be able to upload into the portal. The next thing you need is a professional development plan. And this is something your supervisor needs to develop with you, and that covers all the capabilities across those 7 domains. So it's just like, these are the areas that the person has currently, and these are the areas that are developing. It's totally fine to have like most of those areas as developing, because you're just brand new into the space, into PBS. But you also need a supervision agreement. So your supervisor has to be suitable as a practitioner for the NDIS with at least proficient level or above. You can't have anyone that is a core level practitioner to be your supervisor to sign off on this process. And then you need to complete an entry-level practitioner declaration form, and you'll find all of these things on the NDIS website, the Commission website. And there's some optional evidence that you can upload, but it's not really required. So at this point, it's just about what qualifications you have, your registration, professional development plan, supervision agreement. You need to also upload your employment agreement, because you need to be either employed or you need to have a contractor agreement with a registered PBS company to work in that space. And then once all that's submitted, then the NDIS Commission will consider your application and then advise the outcome in writing, usually with an email, whatever email address that you've provided. So the other option is a suitability application. So this is like a self-assessment process where you've got some experience in PBS. And so this is where you have to upload a portfolio of evidence. And so as a self-assessment process, you need to look at a self-assessment tool against the capability framework. Again, you'll find that on the NDIS Commission website. And to apply this way, you need to include all of the following documentation and evidence, and again, upload into Proda, into the NDIS application portal. So one of the things you need to provide, all the green things, are the things you need to provide with a supervisor, and the ones in black are things just for yourself. So for the first one, it's a portfolio of evidence. So you need to start kind of collecting a folder of all kinds of evidence of your PBS work. Behaviour support plans, functional behaviour assessments, other PBS assessments, resources that you may have developed within that PBS space. Then you'll upload a CV, then a supervision agreement. That supervision agreement needs to include things like the frequency of supervision, the method and modes of how you're going to receive supervision, and also at least one supervision record or a few supervision records. So the NDIS Commission can see that you are actively involved in supervision. The next one is a self-assessment tool. So that is the capability framework. There's a whole bunch of different areas from core all the way to a specialist level practitioner. And you have to self-assess what you believe your skills are across those capability areas. And then your supervisor then also needs to fill out that same process, but they're going to fill out an endorsement tool. So basically, do they agree with your assessment that all of those areas that you're competent in, or that you might be developing some areas? It's okay that some of the areas that you've self-assessed that you think you're competent and your supervisor may think you're still developing is totally okay. You may have several areas that you're developing, but it depends on what level of practitioner you're applying for. So if you're applying for core practitioner, you don't need to apply any evidence, upload any evidence in your portfolio that includes identifying restrictive practices or fade out plans for RPs, because that would be a proficient or above. So if you're only applying for core and you have an evidence portfolio, your supervisor has signed off that they agree with your self-assessment or close enough to agreeing, then that's what you need to upload. Your supervisor also needs to develop a professional development plan. So this is evidence for the Commission that not only are you receiving supervision, but you've got a whole plan forward about how you're going to continue your learning and development as a PBS practitioner. It's really important that you have supervision, but equally important that you have a really clear plan about how you can increase your competencies as you start working in this space. Your supervisor also needs to present some professional learning goals. So what are your learning goals moving forward? And have any of those already been achieved? And you put those together in an achievement record, so to show evidence of your commitment to learning and your commitment by your supervisor to continue to shape your practice as you gain more skills. And then your supervisor needs to evaluate all of the above. They need to spend some time and look through your portfolio of evidence. They need to check if you have all the right documentation and check that in regards to what is expected under the capability framework, you have all of those core skills, either to meet core, proficient, advanced, specialist, whatever that meets is up to your supervisor to sign off. And then there's also a reflective practice tool. So something for yourself just to kind of look at the whole process, look at your portfolio of evidence, look at everything that your supervisor has said or commented or uploaded, and just reflect on your practice and think, okay, am I comfortable ethically with everything that is in my portfolio of evidence?
Mm-hmm.
We'll have some time for questions at the end, so please keep sending your questions through. It's great to see people putting questions, and then we'll grab some of those at the end to talk through. So here is those key competencies within the capability framework. So this is something the NDIS Commission developed a few years ago in trying to say, look, these are all the key things that we think effective behaviour support practitioners need to show that they have the skills and the competencies to do these areas. So you need to make sure that you can focus on an interim response. So that's looking at those interim behaviour support plans, if there's a restrictive practice, a functional behaviour assessment. You need to have the skills to develop a comprehensive assessment, understand what the function is, understand the context of that distressing behaviour. You need to show some planning skills. How are you going to plan to work with implementing providers, and how are you going to plan to implement some of the strategies you've developed? Then implementation, so training the implementation team. That could be disability support workers, families, whatever that looks like for the person support team. And then know it works. So this is around making sure that you're taking data in some of those strategies. Is it working? Is it not working? Do I need to adjust something along the way? Then the next level is to reduce and eliminate restrictive practices. And so you have to identify RPs and have an elimination plan, for a fade-out plan for every single restrictive practice that is included in a behaviour support plan. Needs to also have an accompanying fade-out plan. And then a continuing development for yourself in regards to supervision and learning. What does that look like moving forward? So all of these things are really key competencies that you need to look at developing if you want to work in PBS. You don't have to have them all at once, but it is something that is stipulated within the practitioner capability framework that the Commission has put together. So here's just an example, a snapshot of some key competencies. You can download a copy of the capability framework from the NDIS Commission website. And so here's just one snapshot of what this looks like. So in regards to interim response, so this is an area, all the things around knowledge and then skills, and then what the service provider or implementing provider considerations are. And so in regards to knowledge, the expectation is once you become a suitable practitioner, so maybe not the alternative pathway, but as you work as a practitioner and gain experience, put together your portfolio of evidence, there's an expectation that you will understand behaviours occur and cause immediate risk of harm, understand the high-risk behaviours, know what those high-risk situations and environments are, know how and why interim responses are unique to the person you're supporting, understand that interim risk management may include restrictive practices for a period of time, and understand the consequences, unauthorised use of restrictive practices, and understand the legal and ethical expectations around that. Then there's a bunch of skill areas that the NDIS Commission want you to develop over time if you go through the alternative pathway or understand as a core practitioner or above. You need to be able to gather and document appropriate authorisation and consents, consult with a person, collaborate with the team, identify existing data, and coach implementing providers. And there's a whole list of things then that as a practitioner, you need to be able to work collaboratively with the implementing providers and families around what all of this looks like to help support the implementation of all the strategies that you come up with. There's a full list, again, of the capability framework on the NDIS Commission website. And so there are basically 4 practitioner suitability levels. So first is the core practitioner, or before that is your alternative pathway. If you enter as a practitioner under alternative pathway, you're not any of these things yet. You've got 12 months to reach a core practitioner level and provide a portfolio of evidence to support that. But once you become a suitable practitioner, you can either be core, proficient, advanced, or specialist. Being core means that you have all the core skills to be a practitioner, but you haven't developed some proficient skills around restrictive practices, identifying them, understanding how to work with them, reducing or eliminating restrictive practices, and supervising others. So there are some things you need to reach the proficient level. Then the advanced and specialist level you'll see are at the same level as a practitioner. One's not above the other. Advanced just describes that you have advanced skills across all areas of behaviour support. And specialist refers to a specialist area of behaviour support that you might be a specialist in. That might be working with adults with complex mental health concerns, working with people that have experienced the criminal justice system. A particular diagnosis or setting might be your specialist area. The higher you go up in that process, the more evidence you need to produce in your portfolio. So the portfolio of evidence we described before is really around meeting what's required for a core practitioner. So once you get to a proficient practitioner, then you need to also provide evidence of supervising others, identifying restrictive practices, eliminating or reducing restrictive practices in a safe way. Once you get to advanced and specialist, then you've got more expectations from the Commission around what's included in your portfolio of evidence, especially the specialist level, where you might have to show that you've undertaken research or provided expert level training or additional training at graduate or master's level in a particular area or diagnosis. And so here is what the NDIS Quality Safeguard Commission expectations are for working as a practitioner. So it's expected that you will be able to do all of these things. And this is something that comes out of a recent publication from the NDIS Commission around their expectations of behaviour support. So firstly, you need to adopt a person-centred approach. So the person that you're working with needs to be included in all of the assessments that you do, including restrictive practices. So if you work as a practitioner and you're saying that a particular restriction is the least restrictive option, and you're agreeing clinically that you're going to agree to the implementation of that practice for a period of time, it needs to be the person needs to be included in that process, and you need to show evidence of that. You need to talk about that and show evidence of that in your behaviour support plan and your assessment process. You also need to collaborate with the people who know the person well. Families, support workers, other allied health practitioners, might be previous behaviour support practitioners. You need to collaborate with people that know the person well. So you're not starting from the beginning and wasting valuable time and resources. You're working in a collaborative team. Then also you need to show that you're going to maintain confidentiality and protect the person's dignity. A person has a right to privacy and respect and dignity in regards to dignity of risk and making choice within their ability to do so in regards to if there's guardianship, not guardianship, those sorts of variables. You need to show that you're able to appraise risk. And so that includes interim behaviour support plans where there is restrictive practices in place. You need to show that you're going to take a minimalist approach in regards to risk of harm for the person and others that are supporting them, whilst you then take some further time to undertake more comprehensive assessments, including a functional behaviour assessment. So that initial interim period, you've only got 4 weeks, it's super fast. So you have to kind of show that This is the best way to minimize the risk, to provide you some more time to do some more assessment and some more clinical work. You also have to describe the behaviour in observable and measurable terms. So really important that you're not just like describing a behaviour in using kind of general sweeping phrases or emotions or judgments. It has to be something observable and you have to be able to measure it. Then the expectation is that you're going to be able to conduct a comprehensive and holistic assessment. This is looking at understanding who the person is, what their needs are, and in this particular context that distressing behaviours occur, what that looks like and what need the person is trying to meet. Then you need to show some evidence of being able to select and use direct and indirect measurements of assessment. So things like observations, ABC charts, scatter plots, interviews, all sorts of things that you will use within doing that piece of work. Then the most important part, you need to step back, analyze all that information, integrate all that you have into something cohesive that makes sense, that is logical. So you understand the problem context, who the person is, the need that's trying to be met, and how that's being maintained within that specific context. Then, of course, you always need to think about the ethical and legal requirements of upholding the rights of the person and also meeting the legal and ethical requirements working as a practitioner under the NDIS. So behaviour support assessment is not a one-time event, it is a process. Behaviour is a complex thing to assess, and all humans change often, and depending on the context that behaviour occurs and what we're doing, what's important for us at the time, changes that dynamic. So we have to constantly look at an ongoing process of assessment, intervention, reviewing, data collection, and making data-based decisions around, is this working or is it not working? So that is some of the 10 kind of top areas of the NDIS that they expect from practitioners, and the most recent publication from them. So in regards to what the NDIS requires for the role, there are some regulated tasks and timeframes you need to be aware of. So because PBS practitioners under the NDIS also are kind of, safeguarding, and looking at restricted practice, you need to really understand what those categories are of restrictive practice. There are 5 categories. You need to be able to have the tools and skills to be able to identify restrictive practices within that context and make a clinical assessment as, is this the least restrictive response for this person? Is it time-bound? And how do I fade out those restrictions for the person in the safest way possible? Now, there's regulated and unregulated restrictive practices. Regulated means that there is a behaviour support practitioner involved with the person. There's a current behaviour support plan that has included those restrictions in the behaviour support plan, and the practitioner has said, these are the restrictions that are in place. These are why, at this point in time, they're the least restrictive. And this is how I plan to fade out or eliminate those restrictions in this person's life moving forward. Now, it's important to know you've got some tight time frames to do this. So from the day that the service agreement is signed to the time you've completed an interim behaviour support plan, you have 30 days. So that is not long. And you'll notice there's some inconsistent messaging. There's some areas of the NDIS Commission site that says when you've identified a restrictive practice, but in regards to the legislation, that is clear. It is from the day that you sign the service agreement, you have 30 days to identify restrictive practices, and if they're present, you've got to complete a interim behaviour support plan within those 30 days. Then you have a time frame. If there are restrictive practices, you've then only got 5 months after that 30 days to complete a comprehensive behaviour support plan. If there's no restrictive practices identified, then you have like general terms. There's no set criteria within that person's 12-month plan. But the expectation is around 6 months that you'll complete a comprehensive plan. There's some other regulations and legislation that you also need to be aware of as a practitioner. You need to understand and be able to present skills around being person-centered, co-produce plans and assessments and strategies wherever possible, collaborate with whoever that support team is, including psychiatrists, GPs, support workers, families. There's lots of people in that space. You need to have a worker screening check if you haven't worked in the NDIS before. And there's some compulsory modules that you need to complete as well. You'll find all of those on the NDIS website. You need to be a suitable PBS practitioner under the NDIS Quality Safeguard Commission. That just means you've either applied under the alternative pathway or under a core or above that is deemed as suitable from the NDIS. Then you need to work under a registered PBS provider, and then you need to keep up to date with any NDIS changes. Since this landscape is changing quite frequently, I advise everyone, if you haven't already, sign up for the NDIS newsletters. It's a really good way to kind of keep up with information that's changing or things that are coming up. So supervision is really, really important. It's not just a tick box kind of process to apply to be a practitioner or to apply to, get your portfolio of evidence together. It is around coaching your skills and learning to increase your competencies around specific areas of PBS. It is a very broad space to work in. There are so many skills and competencies you need to do this work well. And it is an absolute game changer if you have quality supervision and have things to support you grow, or you have someone just kind of having chats with you and giving you answers. So you need to look for these things if you've got quality supervision. You want to make sure that they're measuring the baseline of skills and knowledge where you are now against the capability framework areas, and then continue to measure that as you go forward and develop more skills and practice. You want to look for a supervisor that is going to develop a professional development plan with you and measure those against your progress. So at least quarterly process that you need to see what your progress is over the previous quarter. Quality supervision, you would also expect that they will share resources, research articles, books, podcasts, all sorts of things to broaden your knowledge and scope of access to really good quality knowledge and skills around behaviour support. And you would want someone that is going to provide you feedback on your skills, either direct supervision or a video, or feedback on products, things like functional behaviour assessments, behaviour support plans that you complete. And that feedback needs to be timely and specific. So supervisors should use tools to measure your performance against a set criteria. So you know exactly what the expected criteria is. You know exactly what you need to do to increase your skills and knowledge in those areas, and then it's measured and you can track your progress. Good supervision also focuses on systematically increasing your competencies. So evaluating the competency areas that you're really strong in, evaluating areas that you need more support, and really focusing on those areas. They should use checklists, exemplars, evidence support that you can self-assess your own skills as you go forward, and also have real clarity around what you need to do to go to that next level. So working as a PBS practitioner in regards to looking for workplaces, these are the kinds of things that we think that you should ask or consider. So look for how frequent the supervision is. What are you going to expect when you work with a particular place? What is the experience and qualifications of the supervisor that you'll be paired with? But how frequent is the supervision? And does that frequency change over time, or does it stay the same? Think about how the company might support your professional development. What is their process around monitoring your competencies and increasing your competencies? If you have particular goals around increasing confidence or competence in particular areas of PBS, how are they going to support you with that? What are their billable hours or KPIs? So in regards to the NDIS and behaviour support, 5 hours a day is pretty much industry standard. We've heard of practitioners have everything from 5 to 7 hours a day, crazy amounts of things. It's tough work. You need time to have non-billable time to be able to think, assess, step back, do that non-billable travel, admin. There's all sorts of things that you can't claim that you need some time for. It's not the same as working as an OT or a speechy, where you can probably do more sessions in a day, because just the nature of the work can be quite confronting and challenging. So you need that time. Also, think about, do they offer any performance-based incentives, or if you meet those goals and expectations that they have, is there any benefits for doing that? Does anything change in that space? Also, we just want to advise people not to jump into roles as supervisors or something similar until you're clinically ready to do so. I think it's a real red flag if you're offered to supervise a team when you're just starting out. If you've just done a year or two in behaviour support, just be careful that you're not going to set yourself up for failure, and you're going to have a company that is focused on making money, but not provide you with adequate supports and safeguards in place to supervise others and be responsible for other people's practice. And then some overall tips. If you want to be competent and confident as a practitioner, it takes time. There's no quick road, there's no quick fix. You need to invest in that time, and not think about a way to tick a box and just get anyone online that's going to tick a portfolio of evidence just because you're going to pay them some money. Think about, if you're passionate about this work, PBS really needs good, passionate people, not only now, but well into the future. So think about really finding a way to build your skills, build your competence and confidence in all of those skill areas. And then you can then move into teaching, supervising, coaching others down the track once you've got those high level skills. So how can PBS Together help? One of our key areas that we help either brand new practitioners or people that are thinking about being a practitioner is our bootcamp. So in the PBS bootcamp, you've got 14 self-paced courses that equate to a minimum of 37 hours of online interactive learning, 8 hours of webinars, 34 hours of live classes, a vibrant online community, and 8 hours of public supervision across a 9 or 10-month process. So it's an intensive program where you have 650 learning objectives that you will meet and show you have skill in to graduate from that program. So what you'll learn is some foundational concepts around understanding disability, reducing barriers, comprehend what our role is, and also look at critical importance of management, validity and reliability, understand RPs, identifying them and fading them, and also then how to design behaviour support plans, designing reliable plans, analysing, presenting data, conducting effective, comprehensive functional behaviour assessments, developing person-centred strategies, and writing comprehensive plans that are likely to be effective. Then you'll also have a whole section on implementing plans or supporting the implementation of behaviour support strategies. So support the implementation of the plans and strategies, the teams that you have, empower participants and families to promote autonomy and quality of life, and then have the skills to evaluate behaviour support plans against criteria, and also evaluate the implementation of those strategies and plans, and improve the effectiveness of your behaviour support plans overall. So key advantages of PBS: you master skills, practitioner-focused design, they're developed by practitioners, can look at career advancement, and you'll be a part of a super vibrant online community. So here's a bunch of testimonials. There's a lot more, but these are just things that people have said to us in doing the PBS bootcamp. And so the next cohort starts on the 12th of September, so not very far away. So if anyone's interested, you can join in. There's a start. I'm thinking we're missing something, maybe not. So I just want to also say, so PBS Together, we can't secure you work as a PBS practitioner. We can't kind of provide any kind of guarantee that if you do the bootcamp, you'll get work. That's not something we can do because it's a very separate process. As you can see, registering as a PBS practitioner is through the NDIS Commission. You need supervision, and you also need to work with a registered provider. So you have to have those things in place if you want to work in this space. But doing the boot camp, if you haven't quite got a job in PBS and you want one, will increase your employability skills. So it'll help you increase your chances of getting work because you can show evidence of 650 learning goals that you've achieved and show evidence that you've got skills in those key competency areas. Everything in the PBS bootcamp is covered in the NDIS Behaviour Support Policy Guidance documents. All those things we listed at the beginning of the webinar. We cover all of those and much, much more. So you can be confident in that. If you're already working as a PBS practitioner and thinking, I really want to increase my skills or confidence because it's a very tricky space to work in PBS and there are so many things to learn, then the bootcamp as well is a great place to start. And so now we're going to open up with some questions. I think that there's a bunch of questions, so thank you so much for all the questions, and we'll have a bit of a chat.
I'll bring the questions here for you.
Mm-hmm.
First one, only list proper qualifications, so not professional learning like trauma-informed practice. I don't think I have any certificates for a lot of relevant PL.
So at the moment, there are no specific qualifications required to be a PBS practitioner. It really depends on where you're employed. There are some companies that are employing people with relevant experience that is transferable. They might just have a certificate in something. Other companies have a minimum of a bachelor, and they may be around something comparable like behavioral science or psychology, social work, something similar. So it really depends on where you're looking for work.
Mm-hmm. One more.
You can absolutely, step into that space and register as an NDIS provider. And so there are two separate things. You can register yourself as an NDIS provider, or you can work for someone else that's already registered. And then there's also the separate process of becoming suitable under the NDIS Commission. So you can do both of those things. But you just have to look at the process, what skills, qualifications you have, provide a portfolio of evidence, and look at that registration criteria around what you need to be a registered behaviour support company or sole provider. You'll find a lot of information on the NDIS website for that. So they're two different things, but you can definitely do both.
Mm-hmm. One more.
Congratulations for switching careers. That's super cool. Yeah, your resume, if you're going to enter as an alternative pathway, so basically you're saying you haven't worked in PBS before, you've got a role with a PBS registered provider that's going to give you a go as an entry-level practitioner, then your resume, whatever it says, is totally fine. It doesn't have to have anything specific in there about behaviour support or disabilities or anything. That really is up to the employer that you find employment with. So in regard to the NDIS Commission, whatever's in your resume is fine. I would advise that you talk about things like conflict resolution or working with diverse teams, or think about things that you can kind of transfer those skills and talk about that and highlight those areas. And also even really cool ways you can use IT in supporting people with diverse needs is really, really cool and a great skill. So really emphasize those things in your CV, but it's really up to your employer if they take that on, but your CV will be totally fine in that regard. External supervision. Look, it's a great question. It's really tricky. You will find some Facebook groups, I think, in PBS that, there's a lot of people there saying, oh, I do supervision. But really think about that slide that I had around what quality supervision is and look for some of those things. We do provide some supervision at PBS Together, but really our focus is on supervising people that are in the boot camp, because we've got the ability to really kind of support their learning and coaching in a real way. And then that added on one-on-one supervision we can add because we already know them, we know how they operate. We've got evidence of how they're going through the boot camp. So for us, that's kind of what our focus is. But if you want to do something outside of that, look at some Facebook groups, look at some PBS associations or the ABA Association of Australia. They all have some listed supervisors that might help.
Mm-hmm.
So suitable qualification, there isn't any. Basically, if you're a deputy principal, then that's amazing. Welcome to PBS. That is super cool. You've got so many great skills, to work in that space. And regardless if your degree is in applied science like maths, that doesn't discard you from being a practitioner. Again, it really depends on your employer, who you're going to get employment with to give you a go. But if you've been a deputy principal in the high schools, then you got so many skills to bring to that place. I'm sure there'll be so many people really lucky to have you work with them. So that's no problem at all. There's no particular qualification requirement to be a practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
Core BBS, don't need to have evidence of ABCs and plans, just my self-assessment and degrees. So to be a core, so if you go alternative pathway, you don't need an evidence portfolio. If you apply through a self-assessment process, which is core, proficient, advanced, or specialist, you need a portfolio of evidence. So you do need evidence of behaviour support plans, ABC, scatter plots, functional behaviour assessments, RP identification tools, all sorts of things that your supervisor would help you, work with you to put that portfolio together, and then you would assess that as your self-assessment. Your supervisor then would assess your portfolio and your skills around that capability framework and come up with what they feel is a level that suits your skills and your evidence. So Bachelor of Counselling, amazing. Neurodiverse clinic as a counsellor, fantastic. Support worker, brilliant. We love people in PBS that have been support workers because it's just such a great level of skill. Like, you are on the front line, you know what I mean? You see it all. And you also have to implement all the strategies that PBS practitioners come up with, and not always great strategies. And some practitioners have higher level skills than others. So fantastic. You know, really want you to kind of jump into PBS for sure. If you're looking at anything further to study down the track, we would always kind of recommend kind of behavioral science, behavior analysis, because it gives you a scientific kind of depth to some of those skills and knowledge that you might have, but you don't need anything. You've got a Bachelor of Counselling, you've been working as a support worker for 14 years. Find a company to give you a go and register. You sound amazing.
Mm-hmm. This is a good one.
That's a Monday. Congratulations!
Welcome, man.
Welcome to the PBS community. Well done. I guess, you know, from someone starting out is really looking at supervision, like that slide that I talked about, quality supervision. Just ask your company some of those questions around, what does your professional development plan look like? How do they support you to increase your competencies? Ask your supervisor for a professional development plan and ask that they update that every 3 months, and look for some external ways to grow your skills. Of course, we think the PBS bootcamp is the perfect place for you to kind of grow and you know, acquire all those competencies that you need. And it is 9 months of intensive coaching. It is the best training. Helder came to Australia on a global talent visa. What the hell even is that? I have no idea. Never heard of it before until Helder arrived at our doorstep. So we have 650 learning objectives in the bootcamp because of Helder, because of this scientific way he understands learning. And so it's not PowerPoints and do a quiz and tick a box. We really expect you to learn the skills and demonstrate those skills during the 9 months. So you graduate with confidence and competence as a practitioner. So that's my advice. A little bit biased, but that's my advice. Alternative pathway, can I later apply? Absolutely. So with the alternative, it's a great question. With the alternative pathway, you then have 12 months to have your portfolio of evidence together, and then you apply for during that self-assessment process. So it's important to know that time frame because that ends in 12 months. So you've got 12 months under that alternative pathway to work as a practitioner, get supervision, increase your competencies, and develop your portfolio of evidence to meet core or above within that 12 months. So yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Really similar question here. Any other comments?
So you do one or the other. So you either go through an alternative pathway or you go through a self-assessment. Which one you choose depends on what qualifications and experience you have now, and what your supervisor suggests that you do. So alternative pathway is the easiest option. You don't need to show any evidence or portfolio. You just need to upload a CV, supervision agreement, employment contract, professional development plan. There's a couple of bits of paper, a statement and stuff that you need to upload as well. It's all on the Commission website. That's the easiest option. To be a core or above and go through that self-assessment process, you really need an evidence, a portfolio of all of your work that's going to meet that capability criteria.
Mm-hmm. One more question.
Started on my self-assessment. Well done, Jane. Congratulations. You carried out ABC, but don't have proof of my portfolio as confidential. I'm from Ireland and moved over, so it's very different. Yeah, that is so tricky. It's really tricky. Is there any way that you can de-identify anything and get permission to use that as evidence as de-identified? You don't need to have any identifying information in there at all. You just need your supervisor to sign off that they agree that you've got those skills and you showed evidence of that in your portfolio, and that that you're able to show something to the Commission. The Commission does need to view the evidence file, so that may become tricky. But yeah, good luck. Hopefully you can de-identify that somehow and resolve that. It's so tricky.
Yeah. And then we receive a lot of thanks in the chat, Tracey. I'm not bringing all of them here. Thank you so much for sharing with us all your knowledge about the registration process. Thank you everyone for being here with us this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, it's 6 o'clock on a Friday night and we're all here. So thank you so much. We're really glad that we can help, and hopefully we've kind of demystified some of that kind of process and things that you need to think about. And please, PBS Together, we're really here to support you. We're super passionate about behaviour support. It is what we live and breathe for. And so if we can help in any way, please reach out. Jump on our website. It's at the bottom here. The bootcamp link is there as well if you're considering increasing your skills. We would love to see you there. We love building relationships with our boot campers. It's super, super cool. It's the most reinforcing thing. And thank you for being passionate about PBS. We need as many passionate people as possible now and moving forward. It's a booming industry. It's the best job in the world. So thanks for being here, and I hope you're going to be in PBS for years to come, and we'll all catch up with each other when we're old people.
Right.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a nice night.